I'm going to answer some questions from fans about Maleficarum and the movie in which I am the actor and producer of. It's a movie about the Inquisition, as most of you already know, and of course if you're my fan and you asked a question, you know what you're talking about here. Okay, so I'm going to start with JD, who had a lot of questions, didn't he? Okay. How does it make you feel knowing that your fans enjoy watching scenes of you being stripped, bound, and tortured? Do you think it's strange, or are you into it? Okay. I don't think that it's strange. I mean, I make movies with this content. I think that it's important and powerful, and it interests me. The movies that I make fulfill me, and I enjoy making them in so many different ways, and not just acting. I love producing, directing, writing. All of these things together is something that fulfills me like nothing else in life does. So if other people enjoy it as much as I do, that's pretty great. It's really, really great. Okay. His second question from JD. Besides incidental discomfort, I was curious to know how much, if at all, the tortures themselves caused you any discomfort. Okay, for example, did the whipping hurt? Did your arms get sore from being suspended? I like making movies with realism. I mean, okay, you take a mainstream movie that has a few scenes of torture in order to illustrate, really very gloss over an idea of what is torture. And I don't like that because, I don't want to just reference something for 2 seconds. And because the scenes are longer, they have to be realistic. You can't just, fake it, for a scene that edited goes on for 5 minutes to drive the point home. What we do is really delve into a scene like that and explore it from every angle. So, what am I saying here? I tend to go toward the end of realism because, or making scenes as realistic as possible. And in order to do that, sometimes I have to do things that are extremely uncomfortable, physically and emotionally. And the physical part, I wouldn't do anything in which I would be mortally wounded or, not be able to come back to the set for the next day or something like that, because the movie is number one. It's the most important thing. Making the idea happen and making it that a reality. And so I'm really beating around the bush here, aren't I? There are days where, yes, my arms will hurt from being suspended or the whipping it hurts because, I don't, you can make a scene like that 2 different ways. You can have a whip made out of, I don't know, bunny tails or whatever, and that holds for, your 2-second scene. For a longer scene, it's not going to be good. And also, as an actor, I want to feel something. I don't want to pretend every freaking second, because then, for me, the experience, I wouldn't convey what that experience is like for the camera. I don't, it's not like I'm not that good of an actor or something. I think that I am, but it helps. It helps to really get into the character, to feel something, to know that, to realize that in reality, this would be so much worse. I mean, I don't think that people could survive that much torture. And, for more than, we shoot for 6 hours in an afternoon. And I don't think that a human being could take that much if it were real. Okay, that was very long. How uncomfortable was sitting on the horse, and how much worse did the weights make it? I actually built the horse, as I mentioned in another interview, and I drew a lot of different designs and thought about it a lot, and basically the only way to do it was to make it real. So it looks like a horse that you would see in a museum. It's basically a replica. It was extremely, weights or no weights, it was really uncomfortable the whole time. Every time I got up on there, everyone on the set was, I would see faces like, men and women, like, glad that's not me, and I guess I probably could have made it easier on myself, but I figured, I don't know, sometimes I'll just go for efficiency because that's the way I am. And it was pretty uncomfortable, and I just felt sore all over, and, muscle soreness. It's not like you can go to the gym and prepare for these kinds of things, you can't, go and, see a trainer and be like, I'm training for these really, 6 weeks of intense scenes of torture. Can you help me out? It doesn't happen. And your trainer would probably look at you funny anyway. Let's see. How tightly were you actually stretched on the rack, and where, if any, was the discomfort? Joints, wrists, ankles. This is another scene that I really wanted to portray in realism, because there are a lot of scenes that I've seen in Inquisition movies of the rack and stuff like that, and it's like a lot of people they really look at that and they can imagine it. You can imagine ropes or something, or chains or whatever around your wrists and ankles, and being stretched like that it's for a lot of people, it's one of the worst tortures that they could imagine from the Inquisition. So, I wanted things to look, I wanted to feel that to some extent, without, again, having to go to the hospital, or, it's like, somebody call 911 because, I was stretched too tightly. That would be a travesty. So to somebody, I felt what it felt like. When we were trying it out, I said, okay, put the ropes pretty tight. I want to feel like what this feels like, because that's important to me as an actor, and it's important to me in the arc as the character arc of Mariana. I felt like each torture I should feel, because there's a progression of it, and in order to shoot the scenes at the end, because we shot a lot of things in sequence, and I felt, for a lot of the scenes near the end, I really needed to feel that what she had gone through, because it's a progression. There are a lot of different things, and I wanted to really show some of the really awful things that happened in the Inquisition. And you think of, it's not just people thinking up these things, in their imagination, like most people would today, where they would think it up for a story or a movie or something like that. This actually happened. Someone thought up these things in order to cause horrible pain to another person. And so to some extent, I really wanted to show that. I wanted to show the horror of it. And so I needed to feel some of the horror of it. Where was the discomfort? Wrists, ankles, obviously. are very uncomfortable. But a lot of the discomfort on the rack comes from the diaphragm because it's being stretched. And it's hard to even scream or breathe. And it's worse than being suspended or something because if you're suspended, you can normally pull your legs up or something like that to relieve the pressure on the diaphragm. And on the rack, you can't do that. And it kind of, I suppose it could be therapeutic for your back. But other than that, I would say that it's, shoulders also. It's pretty painful. When we're setting it up, we'd put the ropes on and everything, and then we tested it and saw like, okay, you can go this far, but no farther. And because I didn't want to ruin a shot by being like, guys, stop it, please, so we kind of made a threshold for that. Did the heat from the coals become uncomfortable during the spit roasting, or did the spit itself ever start to get hot? I don't know if the spit got hot because I was terrified beyond words. I made a commitment to shoot that scene, but I believe that in terms of sheer terror, it's probably ranks number one now in life experience. The coals were hot. It was smoky. We shot it over 2 days for several reasons, but one of them being that I couldn't be up there for hours. I wasn't, once I got on there, I was just like, okay, shoot. There are photos of this where I'm, because I'm in the sun and everything, they had to kind of, in between takes, they had to cover me with a bathrobe and other various and sundry items so that it didn't burn, because I didn't want to be taken off of the thing while we were paused to change angle or do another shot. I figured I'm going to get up on there, you tie me up on there, and you shoot the goddamn movie, because this is it. If I got off of the spit, I was pretty sure that I just wouldn't get back on. Ever. And so, we had several days in between the first day that we shot and the second one, because I had to let the memory fade a little bit so that I would actually get back up on there, because it was... There are very few things that terrify me. That's one of them. Okay. Let's see. How much did standing on the spikes hurt? This is yet another question from JD. I didn't specify that before. I was actually the only person that could stand on the spikes. Because I'm really small. I'm a little smaller than everybody else. I'm not that small. Not that much of a shrimp. So, being lighter has its advantages. You don't have so much gravity forcing you onto the spikes. I wouldn't, stand around hanging out drinking a beer on them. But, they were uncomfortable. But for everyone else tried them, because it's kind of fun. You have like a new torture instrument. Unlike the horse, which no one else wanted to try out at all, ever, closed or unclosed, everybody seemed to be really curious about the spikes. It was funny because, it's a plank of spikes, and so everyone, when they arrived from the props guy who made them, they're real metal spikes, they're iron, and they came to the set, and everybody was like, oh, I wonder, and they got really curious about it and took off their shoes and socks and stood on them one by one. It was kind of funny. Nobody could, cries of pain and whatnot. Whatever. I guess I'm tough.